everyone, welcome back to TGR, that's Gaming Robo. Now today guys, we're going to be going through the best players to buy on Championship Manager 94. So without further ado guys, we're going to be going through all the players that we've come across that we know for a fact that they are legendary players to have within your team. Whether it all being them being natural goal scorers and they score a shed load of goals, to a defender who may have fantastic ratings and they help your team have the least amount of conceded goals within your team, to midfielders who score and shed loads of goals as well. So just before we start the video, please make sure you smash a like on the video, subscribe if you're new, and make sure you hit that notification bell as well, guys. Well, without further ado, guys, let's start the show and show you the first player on our list, the best players to have on Championship Manager 1994. So the first player on our list is Don Hutchison. Yes, he was a player from 1993, best players to buy. He's also on the 1994 list as well. Fantastic player to have. He's one of these players that will give you a consistent ratings day in, day out, whichever game you play and whichever team you're playing for as well. Fantastic player to have. One that you should have within your team. Another player from the 1993 list, Ryan Giggs. Yes, Ryan Giggs, once again, his stat shows he's a formidable player. He turns into one of the best players on the game as long as you nurture him correctly and you give him all the game time that he needs. Fantastic player to have and a must have in your team. Let's have a look at the next player on our list. Danny Granville. Now don't let the stats fool you. Danny Granville turns into a fantastic player. He's a young player who you can make you gel within your team very, very easily. Very cheap as well. He turns into a fantastic central midfielder within a couple of years. So make sure you buy him early before the bigger teams snap him up and his value increases dramatically. Dean Barrack. Now Dean, once again, like Danny Granville, even though they're both playing at Cambridge United, they both turn out to be fantastic players. Another cheap player, his stats shows you that he will develop into a great player. One that who can command your central midfield, as well as playing the left wing role, of course. But he's better known as a central midfielder, and he's a fantastic player to have. Ian Hendon. Central defender from Leyton Orient. He's a fantastic defender to have. I use the word fantastic a lot, but it is true with all of these players that we are showing you. They all turn out to be great players and ones that you should not miss out on at all. Danny Carter, another Leyton Orient player. He's a brilliant player, full stop. He's a central midfielder as well as a right midfielder. He can also play in attack as well. Me personally, I've bought him before and I played him as a right winger as well as a central midfielder. I've not played him as an attacking player, I will admit, but he turns into a brilliant player to have in midfield. Jody Craddock, 19-year-old central defender. His stats don't look great, but buy him and within the second season you make sure you start playing him every game. His stats will go straight through the roof. It really, really will. So you need to make sure you do buy him because he's dirt cheap. It's a low risk investment and it will make you have massive returns, not just in value but in performances as well. Robbie Fowler. Now Robbie Fowler, he turns into a goal scoring machine in the second season. So if you are Liverpool, you don't have any problems obviously having him in your squad. But if you're not Liverpool, it's very hard to try and prize him away from them. But if you do manage to buy him, second season's the best time where you can buy him and he turns into a goal machine, like I said. Dean Gordon. Now Dean Gordon can play defence, midfield, right stroke centre. Me personally, I played him as a central defender and he paid me back tenfold. He's a great player to have in your defence. And once again, he's another cheap player as well. His average rating at the end of the season was always 8 over. It was never below 8. So make sure if you do need a central defender, he should be at the top of your list. Peter Fear, a young player from the Crazy Gang team, Wimbledon. Once again, it's another low risk investment and it comes back and gives you a massive, massive return. His stats goes up, his performances goes up. He is a fantastic player to have. His best role, personally, is central midfield. Nigel Clough. Now, Nigel Clough was in the Championship Manager 93 list. He's also in the 94 list as well. He is a great player. He's playing at Liverpool. It's a little bit hard to buy him from Liverpool because obviously it's the first season for the club. But saying that, when you do have him, he's the most natural goal scorer to have on Championship Manager 94. Tommy Johnson. He's at Derby County. He's a relatively cheap player. His stats doesn't look inviting, but I tell you what, you buy him. I have managed to buy him for when I was managing Wimbledon at the time. And when I bought him just out of sheer desperate. I needed a player and I was desperate. I bought Tommy Johnson, and he turned into a fantastic attacking player for me. One that actually managed to help me score as many goals as possible and managed to bring Wimbledon from the site of relegation. We managed to pick ourselves back up into mid-table. Now, I signed him halfway through and I managed to get him to play 14 or 15 games, and on average he scored in every single game. So Tommy Johnson is a player who you wouldn't think is a great player, but he turns out to be a fantastic player for your club. Iain Walker. Iain Walker, brilliant goalkeeper on this game. He's over at Tottenham. He's relatively cheap. He's not in the starting lineup, so he will be quite easy to buy for your club. So if you do need a goalkeeper, Iain Walker should be on top of your list. Darren Eadie is a 17-year-old player from Norwich City. He was never an attacker in real life. He was a midfielder, attacking midfielder at best. But nonetheless, he is an attacker on this game, striker on this game. His stats don't look inviting as well, but you buy him, give him 2 seasons, 3 at the very, very most. His stats will show you what type of player he is, and he will be a great player to have within your team. Adi Akinbiyi. I bought Adi Akinbiyi for Wimbledon, like I did with Tommy Johnson. Unfortunately, Adi Akinbiyi had become injured, and he was injured for a long time. In the second season, it was Adi Akinbiyi and Tommy Johnson up front together, and with them two combining, they managed to help bring Wimbledon up from when we finished mid-table in the first season, nearly fighting relegation, of course, but bringing us up to the top 6 within the Premier League. Now, that was a massive achievement for Wimbledon, and that was Adi Akinbiyi and Tommy Johnson as a strike force together. Chris Bart Williams, he's in this Championship Manager list again. 19-year-old, his value is starting to increase now because he's starting to become a first-team player for Sheffield Wednesday. Give him a season, 2 at the most, and you will see once again he turns into a legend on Championship Manager 1994. Alan Moore, an 18-year-old central midfielder. He's not known as an attacker, but he plays a striker on here apparently, but he's known as a central midfielder. He's cheap, 18 years old. His stats it is a good start for his stats, and he will develop into a brilliant central midfielder for your team. Julian Joachim, once again, he's come into Championship Manager list. He is a fantastic player to have. Don't forget the fact that it shows he's a midfielder, central midfielder. He plays best as a striker. So if you need a striker, buy Julian Joachim. You will not be sorry. Neil Lewis, he can play in defence, midfield and attack. My own personal opinion, I played him at left back. He was brilliant to have. And once again, he's one of these players who doesn't show that he's going to be a formidable player, but he turns out to be a formidable player. Sol Campbell. We all know what Sol Campbell's history was like. He was a fantastic player for both Tottenham and as well as Arsenal. It shows he could play midfield and attack. Ignore that. Well, I ignored it. I played him as a central defender, obviously, because that's what his position was. But He can play in all those three of those positions, and obviously it shows he can play at left back as well. Personally, I just stuck him at central defence. His stats shows he is a fantastic defender already. Just buy him. See if you can buy him, play him every game, and watch him and his value soar as high as you can get your team. Scott Oakes. Now, Scott Oakes plays over at Luton Town. Cheap player. He can play in defence, midfield, and attack, obviously on the left-hand side. I bought him when I was managing Torquay United on this game, and I cannot believe the stats that his average rating. He turns out to be a 7 to 8 player every single game. He is one of those players who seems to be a very important player within the team. Now, I will admit I've never bought him for a Premier League club. It's something that I will be doing soon on one of the new videos that we will be doing on Championship Manager 94 and seeing whether or not if he turns out to be that good. But definitely in the leagues below the Premier League, he's a great player to have in your team. Mark Hall. Now, Mark Hall can play on the right and the left in midfield, and he can play up front as well. Personally, I would play him either in midfield, either right or left. It doesn't matter. Obviously, South End plays him on the left-hand side. Once again, he's another player I managed to buy when managing Torquay United, and he is a great player to have in your team. He's always there when it comes to goal scoring opportunities. So if you do manage a lower league side or a team underneath the Premier League, of course, he should be the first person if you're looking for a winger. He should be the first person that you should be looking at to buy. Paul Sturgis. Now, Paul Sturgis, he's playing at Charlton Athletic. He's 18 years old. His value is dirt cheap, and he is transfer listed as well. His stats shows you that he is going to be a great player already, even at the age of 18. I haven't bought him as of yet. I've played against him numerous times when managing my Torquay United side. And I'll tell you what, in every single game that I've seen him playing for Charlton Athletic, he always seems to be coming up on the video printer list to show that he's obviously playing within the action. After looking at his stats, he is a player that I will be buying for myself, of course. But looking at his stats already, it shows that he's a great player to have in your team. Steve Bushell. Now, Steve is playing at York City. I've always known Steve to be a striker, but it shows he could play as a right winger, a central midfielder, or as a striker. Even though it shows he's injured at the moment, his stamina is brilliant. His stats shows that he's going to be a great player. He's cheap. His wages are going to be dirt cheap as well. He is a goal scoring machine for lower league teams or, under the Premier League, of course. I will be buying him for one of my seasons when managing a Premier League side, and I will be seeing whether or not if I can turn him into a goal scoring machine in the Premier League. Jordan Dar. Now, I've always known Jordan Dar to be a striker, but on here it shows he's a defender as well as a midfielder in a central role. I bought him for Torquay United when Crystal Palace got relegated, and I played him as a central midfielder. He's a fantastic player to have in central midfield role if you are looking for that general midfielder. He seems to be that player. He's a general midfielder on Championship Manager 94. So if in doubt, you buy Georgian Dar. Joey Beauchamp. Now, Joey is a great player. He was on the Championship Manager 93 list. He's now on the Championship Manager 94 list over at Swindon Town. His influence, his stats in general shows he's going to be a great player to have. Now, in the 93, I bought him and he was a brilliant player. In 94, played against him and he scored a hat-trick against me. He is a great player to have in your team. Me, personally, I would play him as a central midfielder. Duane Darby. Yes, a Torquay United player has made this list. I know Duane Darby. Obviously, his stats don't show he's going to be a great player. He's 19 years old. He's one of the cheapest players to buy on this game. He is an out-and-out striker. You need to have him if you're managing a lower league club. Duane Darby will score you goals after goals after goals after goals in your team. As long as you have a great team that will assist him as many chances as possible, as long as they have great creativity, he will be there at the end of it each and every time, and he will bag you the goals that you need. And finally, Scott Stamps. He was known as a left back at Torquay United, going back to obviously when he was actually playing for Torquay United back in the day. But on Championship Manager 94, they've listed him as a right back. Now, I've played him at left back on this game. He is a great player to have in your team. He's a stable left back in your team. He's quick, he's great at tackling, and his stats will develop more and more as you play him as the time goes by. So make sure you do buy him for your team. So that's it, guys. That's all the best players to have in your team for Championship Manager 1994. Now, if you do like the video, guys, you like some of the players that have been on this list, please make sure you smash a like on the video. If you are new to the channel, as I said before, subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell as well. If you feel that I've missed any players out, or you've come across a player that is great on Championship Manager 94, please leave a comment below, because I am always open to seeing what other people think of other players on this game. Now, just make sure you do as well, guys, check the other videos on our channel, because we are the only channel that does the most comprehensive videos of hints and tips on all Championship Manager or all other football management games. So please make sure you do give each or any of them a watch, the ones that you are looking for, of course. Well, apart from that, guys, thank you very much for your time. I look forward to seeing each and every one of you at the next video here at TGR. That's Gaming Robbo.